Hello, I am teacher and author Shon and today is my special short inspiration. And I'm going to be talking about something that's very interesting and very powerful for you to understand how to beware of your frenemies. What are frenemies? Well, frenemies are friendly enemies that try to stay a part of your life to bring harm to you. When you think of a friend is someone that's loyal and committed to your best interest. They want to see you happy. They want to see you prosper. And the word "in" is in the word friend. Someone that's there to the end to help you through your challenges and celebrate your blessings. And then the enemy is someone, they don't want you to prosper. When you come to them about your blessings, their attitude is negative. They got to say something negative about, the blessing God has given you. They speak ill of you. They try to bring you down, and they're nosy, and they try to, keep themselves in your business. And so God wants me to share with you how you can keep your love for these kind of people, and that, you can also, recognize these kind of people that are frenemies and, keep the love of God in your heart, use wisdom, be wise, and to also keep God's peace and forgiveness in your heart towards these kind of people. And so I'm going to go to in the Bible the story about King Saul and King David. And I'm going to read from the book of 1 Samuel, the prophet, who helped govern, King Saul, as king. And as far as the story of how kings were established in the Bible, Israel, the people of God, who were the Jews, they wanted a king. They were governed by judges, but they weren't satisfied with that. And Judges is a book in the Bible, in the Old Testament, but they weren't satisfied with Judges. And so, Israel prayed for a king, and God gave them King Saul. And so Saul, he started off good, but he didn't listen to the prophet Samuel. And God took the blessing of, Saul's power and gave it and transferred it to King David. But in this story, I'm going to talk about how, King Saul became jealous of King David. And it wasn't King David's fault that Samuel, warned King Saul on how to, govern his, authority as a king. And, King Saul was disobedient to God. And so the 10th chapter of 1 Samuel, talks about Samuel, giving David Saul instructions on, how to begin, being a king. And so this was Samuel talking to King Saul. It says, "And let it be, when these signs are come unto thee, that thou do as occasion serve thee, for God is with thee." And then I'm, continuing on. And then it says, "And thou shalt go down before me to Gilgal, and behold, I will come down unto thee to offer burnt offerings and to sacrifice sacrifices of peace offerings. 7 days thou shalt tarry till I come to thee, and show thee what thou shalt do." Again, this was, Prophet Samuel, helping King Saul start, being a king. And, he was telling him, how to deal with the war of the Philistines, who were the enemies of Israel. And, God always blessed Israel to win their battles, in military wars. And so the king was to help govern this war. And King Saul, when I go further into this story, did not obey the voice of God through Prophet Samuel. And so reading on, going to the 13th chapter, and in the 13th chapter, this was one example of Saul's disobedience that changed, the destiny of Saul, being king. And so I'm going to start at the 8th verse. And it says about Saul, "And he tarried 7 days according to the set time that Samuel had appointed. But Samuel came not to Gilgal, and the people were scattered from him. And Saul said, Bring hither a burnt offering to me and peace offerings. And he offered the burnt offering. And it came to pass that as soon as he had made an end of an offering, the burnt offering, behold, Samuel came and said," Samuel came, and Saul went out to meet him, that he might salute him. And Samuel said, "What hast thou done?" And Saul said, "Because I saw that the people were scattered from me, and that thou camest not within the days appointed, and that the Philistines gathered themselves together at Michmash. Therefore said I, the Philistines will come down now upon me to Gilgal, and I have not made supplication unto the Lord. And I forced myself, therefore, and offered a burnt offering. And then the 13th and the 14th verses says, and Samuel said to Saul, thou hast done foolishly. Thou hast not kept the commandment of the Lord thy God, which he commanded thee. For now will the Lord have established thy kingdom upon Israel forever. But now thy kingdom shall not continue. The Lord hath sought him a man after his own heart, and the Lord hath commanded him to be captain over his people, because thou hast not kept that which the Lord hath commanded thee. And so that was the turning point of, Saul losing his blessing. And then if you go to 1 Samuel, the 16th chapter, this talks about, you can read, in your own time, how David was anointed king, and he was a teenager from what I understand, and he watched over the sheep. And, God still anointed him king at an early age because God knew that David's heart was going to be after him. And so, and then I'm going to move further into 1 Samuel, the 18th chapter, and this is when, Saul began to recognize, that David was going to be the one that God chose to continue to reign over Israel. And, Saul had chose David, in this story to play music for him. He brought him into the palace, because, David was famous for his music, and David, helped, slay the giant Goliath. And so, Saul welcomed him into his army and everything. And then just moving forward to the 18th chapter, he started to recognize that there was something special about David. And so the 6th verse of the 13th chapter of 1 Samuel says, and it came to pass as they came, when David was returned from the slaughter of the Philistine, that the women came out of all the cities of Israel, singing with dancing to meet King Saul with tabrets, with joy, and with instruments of music. And the women answered one another as they played, and said, Saul hath slain his thousands, and David his 10,000s. And Saul was very wroth, and the saying displeased him. And he said, they have ascribed unto David 10,000s, and to me they have ascribed but thousands. And what can he have more but the kingdom? And Saul eyed David from that day and forward. And then reading on in this chapter, Saul tried to give David a wife, one of his daughters. The 17th verse says, and Saul said to David, behold, my elder daughter, Merab, her will I give thee to wife. Only be thou vigilant. It says, only be thou valiant for me, and fight the Lord's battles. For Saul said, let not my hand be upon him, but let the hand of the Philistines be upon him. And so if you think about that, it seemed like Saul was trying to set David up to get killed. And then he also offered him his other daughter, Michal. And so then going to the 19th chapter, Jonathan, the son of Saul, they had a good relationship, Jonathan and David. They had a brother relationship. It wasn't a gay relationship. I just want to be clear on that. God had blessed them to have a loyal friendship. And Jonathan looked out for David. And Jonathan began to see the jealousy and the envy that Saul, his dad, had towards David. And so if you go further into 1 Samuel, the 24th chapter, and in the 24th chapter, I'm going to start at the first verse. It says, and it came to pass when Saul was returned from the Philistines, from following the Philistines, that it was told him, saying, behold, David is in the wilderness of En-gedi. Then Saul took 3,000 chosen men out of Israel and went to seek David and his men upon the rocks of the wild goats. And he came to the sheepcotes by the way, where was a cave. Saul went in to cover his feet, and David and his men remained in the sides of the cave. And then reading further in the 9th verse, it says, and David said to Saul, wherefore hearest thou men's words, saying, behold, David seeketh thy hurt. Behold, this day thine eyes have seen how that the Lord hath delivered thee today in my hand in the cave. And some bade me kill thee, but mine eyes spared thee. And I said, I will not put forth my hand against my Lord, for he is the Lord's anointed. This was David talking. Moreover, my father, ye see the skirt of thy robe in my hand. For in that I cut off the skirt of thy robe, and killed thee not. Know thou and see that there is no evil, nor transgression in my hand, and I have not sinned against thee. Yet thou huntest my soul to take it. The Lord judge between me and thee, and the Lord avenge me of thee. but my hand shall not be upon thee. And then King Saul had the nerve to say this in the 21st verse of this chapter. And now behold, I know well that thou shalt surely be king, and that the kingdom of Israel shall be established in thy hand. And so, King Saul, saw that David had the opportunity further in the story to kill him, and David showed him love and said, you know what? I'm going to let God judge between me and thee. I'm not going to even do nothing to you. And then King Saul wants to recognize who he was. And so God wants you to be aware of people like that. And David, it says in this story, he just kept being wise. He kept his heart right. And the Lord ultimately made him king, over Israel. And so I want to encourage you. You need to beware of your frenemies. They have a jealous spirit. They're envious against you. They're nosy. They don't want to celebrate your blessings. And then sometimes they'll try to invite you to stuff, with the ill intention of getting into your business. And you need to guard those type of people from your business. But let me tell you to go to St. Matthew, the 5th chapter. And I'm going to read what Jesus taught in the earth, about how to love your enemies. The 44th verse says in St. Matthew, but I say unto you, love your enemies. Bless them that curse you. Do good to them that hate you. And pray for them which despitefully use you and persecute you. And, God was just saying, I told you to love your enemies. That's challenging sometimes. But God said, do it, because God said you'll be rewarded if you do what's right. The same way he rewarded David. David had his challenges and stuff when he became king, but his throne has been established forever. We still singing David's songs from the book of Psalms. I mean, he's a good example of the loyalty and the praise and worship that he gave God. And so, you have to learn how to love your enemies, but you beware of them. You don't put people into your bosom, that's against you. God will let you know if you stay prayerful who's for you and who's against you. And God will give you people that support you and love you. And so love your enemies, and you have to keep them on your prayer list. You have to pray for them. They should be in your prayer. That's God's order. You can do it. And God will bless you for that. And so my final closing thought is Romans, the 12th chapter. And I'm going to read from the 12th chapter, the 17th verse. And it says, recompense to no man evil for evil. Provide things honest in the sight of all men. If it be possible, as much as lieth in you, live peaceably with all men. Dearly beloved, avenge not yourselves, but rather give place unto wrath. For it is written, vengeance is mine. I will repay, saith the Lord. And then it says, therefore, if thy enemy hunger, feed him. If he thirst, give him drink. For in so doing, thou shalt heap coals of fire on his head. Be not overcome of evil, but overcome evil with good. And so be encouraged by that. You have the power through God to love your enemies, and know that God's going to give you blessings, and they can't stop your blessings, but you have to be wise and know who's for you, who's against you, and you keep distance between you and your enemies, and you allow God to guide you on who can be your friend and who's not your friend. And you keep the love of God in your heart, and God will continue to bless your life. And if God be for you, who can be against you? Will you be inspired by that, and you be encouraged by that? God bless you.